welcome to Portal 64, your gateway to some RWBY criticism. I'm your host, David, and after each volume of RWBY, I try to have a video about some critiques I had on it and think could have been done better, and I have a video on stuff I did like and would like to see more of in future volumes. And this is, of course, the things I think could have done better, and I took a while to think on this because I really liked Volume 6, not gonna lie, it's somewhere in the top 2, top 3. I really liked the volume, and a lot of the stuff I noticed that I didn't like about it actually had to do with Cordovan. I didn't dislike the character, she just oddly enough was involved with a lot of the stuff I didn't like. I just don't want people to be like, oh, he hates Cordovan, which I don't think there's any Cordovan stans. If you're a Cordovan stan, please let me know in the comments. I'm sorry for what I'm about to say. A lot of the stuff I didn't like mainly starts coming around like episode 9, episode 10. Basically, the Cordovan fight and the Adam fight, the biggest thing I think could have been changed to improve the volume was to keep those two fights in their own episodes, not have them cut in between each other. It really messed up with the rhythm of each of the fights, and I felt like whenever the fights really were starting to pick up and get really good, it would cut to the other fight. Mainly with the Adam fight, things were getting really good, and then they cut to Cordovan's fight, which the Cordovan fight with the giant mech honestly was quite a bit of a mess. I think there was they did the best they could, or actually no, not the best they could. I think there a lot of the criticisms I have is some stuff could have done better with that fight. They tried to have a lot of teamwork, which I agree, yes, you need to do that, but there were some shots that I think kind of showed some errors they made. There was one shot that normally you would consider like as an establishing shot, or like it was a very wide shot, and it was from like a bird's eye angle from behind Cordovan, and you could see the cliff and all that. It's like right after Ruby and Weiss had jumped down towards the water to like run towards the mech to get into its blind spot and like maybe do something down there, and you just see them standing there. They're completely still. I think Ren and maybe Crow are on the back of the mech trying to get to the power source, and then you have Jean and Nora trying to like distract the mech from the cliff, and then of course the jet is flying around. Obviously they had like good strategy parts, but I felt like that fight was just so all over the place, and with Cordovan being like cartoonishly evil or full of ego, it kind of made the fight feel less serious. There wasn't much at stake because we know Cordovan wasn't trying to kill them. Well, until she pointed a giant cannon at Ruby point blank, but you know, just too all over the place, and they just kind of kept that fight shorter. I think that could have been done better because I kind of consider this fight a big boss fight, so to say, and there are really only 2 big boss fights I could think of in RWBY, which is Roman Torchwick in a mech in Volume 2, which honestly is the best one out of the big boss fights, and then there's the Knuckle of V fight in Volume 4, which again, like the Cordovan fight, I think like lasted too long. They could have made it a little shorter, but the Roman fight, you know, it was short. They had really good cuts in it. They had good teamwork, and like I said, it was short and sweet, and because of that I think it did better. Whereas the Cordovan fight, because it lasted more than an episode, you're just kind of like, what? You just think, what are they doing? You kind of get just a little bored because it feels like it's just stretched out. It felt like it was longer than it needed to be, and I think they could have done better. Another criticism of that fight was they tried to do something creative with the fact that it's 3D, or maybe, I mean, you could have done this in 2D animation, but there was a shot that it showed like the rocket launcher on the jet super up close. Like, I at first thought this was like a camera on the jet, but the way they cut to it, I was like, wait, whoa, what am I looking at? Then the missile shoots, and you're like, oh, okay, it's a missile. Then the screen goes completely brown, and it zooms out, and it shows the fist of the mech, and you're like, what just happened? You have to process what you just saw, and it happens very shortly. And I know I'm not the only RWBY tuber to talk about this, Uh, some people even posted a clip of it on Twitter and was like, what did I just watch? I think they're trying to use creative camera work and cinematography with 3D animation. I think they just need to study up on Land Illustrious just a little bit, because Land Illustrious has a lot of great examples of like using their 3D animation and cinematography very well together, and I think there was something they could have done that worked better. And I think maybe if you had instead shown it from like the missile's point of view, so to say, it would have looked better and also made more sense. So instead of staring at the missile and having the missile go towards you, instead you're coming from the missile towards the mech and you see the mech catch it. Like, I think that would have made more sense visually, and it would have probably flown a little better. Like if you at least established, okay, the jet, you see it, I don't know, maybe just keep that shot completely out. Keep it out of the fight. But I think it would be great to experiment with that, but it needs to be done right in order to keep it in the episode. Please. The next criticism I have that also has to do with Cordovan, and again, I apologize to whoever voiced her or like the character itself. I didn't like how they did the change of heart for her. It wasn't so much I didn't like that it happened. It's just more the delivery could have been better. Felt too much like a switch in her head turned on and she went to go help Team RWBY and take down the Leviathan Grimm. If instead, maybe before Team RWBY had to go run off to help defend the city, if maybe a few Grimm came and tried to attack the mech and they defended Cordovan from the Grimm and then went to go see the city, and we had Cordovan kind of like struggling like, oh, they tried to help me, but why? I was trying to fight them. And then she kind of like, you know, we kind of see her process like, oh, you know, they're not bad people and they're just trying to help protect people like I am. And then she goes helps them, and it's not just a sudden like aha moment. I think that would have done better. Like when you watch it, you understand why she came to their aid. It just felt too sudden. It felt like too jarring of a change. I felt like if you just took a little bit more time on the transition and saw a little bit more of the thought process going on with her, that would have worked a lot better. And again, not saying it was a bad thing, just that it could have been done better in the delivery. And speaking of the Grimm invasion, this is the third volume finale with a Grimm invasion, and honestly, kind of the worst one. Not the worst one in like it was bad or anything, but we've just seen it so many times that it no longer, I don't know, it doesn't feel surprising or anything. And I get that they were using it more as a setup for RWBY to test her silver eyes. I just hope that maybe they could change circumstances up a little bit more with the Grimm invasion. The other two Grimm invasions were also kind of like the White Fang and Roman were kind of like helping get the Grimm inside of Vale and, you know, attacking the city. So maybe those just felt more different, whereas this was more of like a any other day Grimm invasion for that city or most cities in the world of Remnant. I don't know. I just feel like we've seen Grimm invasions enough in a finale that maybe not have them in the finale anymore. Maybe put them somewhere else in the volume where it makes sense. Especially if they're gonna last so short as this one did. I'm just a little done with Grimm invasions, for me at least. maybe if we had a little bit more dire circumstances and I was more to get us more on the edge of our seat, like, oh my gosh, stuff is happening, then maybe I'd be more engaged and would be willing to be like, oh yeah, that was fine, I don't mind it as much. For now, it's just like, again, I would just like to go another 2, maybe 3 volumes without that, but considering where the show is going, I highly doubt that. I could easily see Volume 7, Atlas getting invaded by a Grimm invasion. Actually, no, I can't say I easily see it, I just see it coming, because Volume 6 did end with Salem making her Grimm army and be like, fine, I'm gonna do it herself. And I'm actually really excited for that because it's led by Salem. It's gonna be different. It's like a formal attack. It's not just like a bunch of random animals coming to attack a city that's fully armed. It's going to be planned, it's going to be strategic, kind of like the other two. Well, I was going to say the other two, but Volume 2 was just like, oops, we accidentally brought the Grimm here a little earlier than planned. So I guess more like the Volume 3 Grimm invasion, and I'm pretty stoked about that setup. For the most part, that's been my criticism for Volume 6, is just the last couple episodes of the volume I felt like dropped the overall quality of the volume. If they had probably kept the fights in their separate episodes to just have them solid and more fleshed out, and worked a little better on the delivery of Cordovin, I think this could have easily been like the top volume of RWBY. But because they didn't, and the changes were so different, and I think especially when it comes out on Blu-ray and it's going to be one big video, especially with the end of episode 10 going into episode 11, because you go from Cordovin fight, cliffhanger with Blake and Adam, immediately back to Cordovin at the beginning of episode 11. On the Blu-ray, that's going to be pretty jarring, and episodically it works better, but you know, for the Blu-ray release, it's going to be a lot more noticeable to people. And so honestly, if those were done differently, done a little better, I think this would have been the best volume of RWBY, but I think it might be sitting in second or third place for me. Anyways, that's all my thoughts and criticism on RWBY Volume 6. You guys let me know, what did you think could have been done better in Volume 6 in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe. Check out my RWBY podcast, Vitalcast, as well. I've been bringing on a lot of other RWBY tubers that are new on there recently. We got a new layout. It looks amazing. I'm super excited for it, and we're trying to build up some hype for a possible another panel at RTX. And as always, I will boop you next time.